The hum is the first thing you learn to love. It's the only constant in a room where the light is never the same. 1,000 tiny lives play out on the wall in front of me, a silent, flickering tapestry of empty hallways, sleeping suburbs, and rain-slicked parking lots. My official title is Network Integrity Technician for Aegis Secure. It's a sterile corporate name for a simple job. I watch the watchers. I don't look for intruders or chase down burglars. I just make sure the little green light next to each client's name stays green. I'm a digital janitor, sweeping up dropped packets and rebooting frozen feeds from 1,000 miles away. My world is a cavern of cool, recycled air, in the low vibrational thrum of the server racks behind me. The sound is a companion. It's the deep, steady breathing of the machine that connects all these disparate points of light. From my throne of worn leather, I see it all. A deer stepping gracefully across a manicured lawn in Connecticut. A single lonely car pulling into a gas station in rural Arizona. The hypnotic sway of a crib mobile in a nursery in Oregon. They are ghosts to me. Data streams. I am the god of this silent, miniature universe, and my only commandment is that the stream must flow. Most nights are a slow, methodical crawl towards sunrise, punctuated by the bitter taste of burnt coffee and the ache in my lower back. You learn the rhythms of the sleeping world. The synchronized extinguishing of lights between 10 and 11. The surge of motion-activated porch lights as nocturnal animals make their rounds. The deep, absolute stillness of the hours just before dawn. It was in this profound silence, this digital graveyard shift, that I first saw the room. It was nothing at first. A flicker. Client 783, a warehouse in Salt Lake City. The feed, showing a long corridor of stacked pallets, blinked. For less than a second, the image was replaced by something else. It was a room, empty, save for a single wooden chair sitting dead center. The walls were bare plaster, stained with age and water damage. Dust motes hung in a single shaft of what looked like moonlight, cutting in from a window I couldn't see. The camera angle was static, low to the ground. Then just as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. The warehouse corridor returned, unchanged. I blinked, rubbing the grit from my eyes. A data collision, I thought. A stray packet from a corrupted archive file. It happens. The system is a vast, complex web of information, and sometimes wires get crossed. I made a note in the digital log, momentary visual artifact, feed 783, or 3:14:17 a.m., and thought nothing more of it. The hum of the servers was reassuring, a lullaby of logic and order. The universe was still running on node, and code could be messy. I took a sip of my coffee and watched the silent lives play on. The next night, it happened again. This time it was client 1124, a residential home in Florida. The camera was pointed at a sterile, modern kitchen, all stainless steel and granite countertops. At 3:14 a.m. precisely, the kitchen vanished. For a heartbeat, there was the room again. The same dusty floorboards, the same water-stained walls, the same simple wooden chair in the center, the same static, unmoving perspective. I sat up straighter, the worn leather of my chair groaning in protest. Twice as a coincidence. A strange one, but still within the realm of possibility. I ran a deep diagnostic on both affected clients. The logs came back clean. No hardware failure, no software conflicts, no network interruption. According to the system, nothing had happened at all. This is when the obsession began. It started as a professional curiosity, a puzzle to be solved, a ghost in my machine. I wrote a simple script, a little digital watchman of my own. It would monitor every feed in the network and flag any visual data that matched the pixel signature of the strange, dusty room. I felt a surge of pride as I executed the code. I was the master of this domain, and no anomaly could hide from me for long. I leaned back, my eyes scanning the grid of screens, and I waited for 3:14 a.m. The minute hand on the system clock crawled, 3:13. The hum of the servers seemed to deepen, to drop in pitch. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with anticipation. My heart hammered a nervous rhythm against my ribs. My gaze darted across the wall of monitors, trying to watch all 10,000 at once. 3:42. It was like a wave of silent lightning. Not one or two screens, but dozens, maybe hundreds. All across the grid, my script highlighted feeds in a pulsing, angry red. Florida, California, Maine, Texas, a bakery in Seattle, an office building in Chicago, a quiet suburban driveway in New Hampshire. For one shared, impossible second, they all ceased to be what they were. They all became the room. The same angle, the same chair, the same oppressive silence. Then as one, they blinked back to their own realities. I stared, my breath caught in my throat. The wall was a sea of normalcy again, but the red flags from my script remained, a rash of digital hives across the face of my world. This wasn't a glitch. Glitches are random, chaotic. This was precise. It was synchronized. It was everywhere. A cold dread, heavy and metallic, settled in my gut. The logical, ordered world I governed had a secret, a hidden basement that opened its door for 1 second every night. And I was the only one who had seen it. For the next few days, I tried to rationalize it. I dove into the system's core programming, searching for some forgotten developer's tool, some bizarre network-wide Easter egg. Perhaps it was a fail-safe, a default image broadcast during a system-wide clock sync. I scoured old technical manuals and forgotten developer forums, searching for any mention of it. I found nothing. The explanation felt thin, a layer of tissue paper over a gaping void. But it was something to hold on to. It was an anchor of logic in a rising tide of the impossible. I told myself it was benign. A quirk. It had to be. I almost managed to believe it. I clung to that belief for a whole week. Every night at 3:14 a.m., my screen would light up with red flags, a silent nightly testament to the system's secret. I would watch, my heart a cold knot in my chest, and then I would watch them disappear. I was becoming accustomed to it, normalizing the impossible. It was just a thing that happened. A weird digital ghost that haunted my network. It was knowable. It was contained. Then the chair moved. It was a Tuesday. I was tracking the event as usual, my eyes locked on a bank of screens I had dedicated to the flagged feeds. 3:14 a.m. arrived. The room bloomed across the network. I watched, expecting the same static, unchanging image. But it was different. My mind struggled to process the detail. The chair. It wasn't in the center of the room anymore. It had been moved. Just a foot, maybe two to the left. The deep grooves it had left in the dusty floorboards were visible, stark and clear. A new set of grooves marked its new position. The air rushed out of my lungs. A profound, bone-deep cold washed over me. My anchor of logic didn't just break, it vaporized. A static image file doesn't change. A pre-recorded artifact doesn't spontaneously rearrange itself. This wasn't an echo of old data. It was a live feed. My system, my safe closed loop of information had a window. A window looking into a place that was active. A place where things moved. I felt like I was staring into an open grave. The comforting hum of the server room suddenly sounded menacing, like the purr of some great sleeping beast. I felt an overwhelming urge to tell someone, to show them what I'd found. But who would I tell? And what would I say? That our multi-million-dollar security network had a poltergeist? They wouldn't believe me. They'd have me committed. I was alone with this, utterly and completely alone. My obsession transformed from curiosity into a kind of grim duty. I was no longer a technician. I was an observer of something I was never meant to see. I tried to trace the signal, to follow the data packets back to their source. It was a fool's errand. The signal didn't come from outside the network. The diagnostics showed it originating from within, from everywhere at once, like the system was dreaming it into existence. It was a ghost woven from the very fabric of the code. The following night, I isolated a feed from a flagged location, a 24-hour laundromat in Ohio, and routed its audio to my headset, cranking the gain to maximum. At 3:14 a.m., the room appeared on the screen, and through the wash of static, I heard it. A sound. It wasn't loud, just a low, resonant hum, like a massive electrical transformer. And beneath it, something else. A whisper. It was faint, distorted by the digital noise. A dry, rasping sound like dead leaves skittering across pavement. It was impossible to make out any words. I spent the next 4 hours recording the audio from hundreds of different feeds during the event and layering them using noise cancellation software to filter out the static. Slowly, painstakingly, a pattern began to emerge from the noise. The whisper wasn't random gibberish. It was a voice, a dry, genderless, ancient-sounding voice. And it was speaking numbers. At first, they were just a chaotic string. But as I cleaned the audio further, I recognized them. They were client IDs, the unique numerical identifiers for every customer in my system. I felt my blood run cold. It was reciting a list, my list, a roll call. I cross-referenced the numbers with our database. The Henderson residence, client 742. The Miller family, client 931. The downtown medical building, client 405. It was naming them, calling them out one by one into the silence of that empty waiting room. The night after that, I was ready, or as ready as a man can be when he's about to stare into the abyss. I had the list of client IDs I'd been able to decipher from the recording. My hands trembled as I typed them into a search query, creating a dedicated screen that showed only their feeds. A dozen homes and businesses scattered across the country now filled my vision. They were my canaries in this digital coal mine. The clock ticked toward the witching hour, 3:13. The server hum was a deafening roar in my ears. I could feel the electricity in the air, the ozone tang of something immense powering up. I watched the dozen feeds, my knuckles white as I gripped the edge of my desk. A sleeping family in one, an empty office in another, a hallway in a darkened school, all quiet, all normal, 3:14. The room. It consumed all 12 screens at once. The chair was back in the center of the room as if it had never moved. And the whisper came through my speakers, no longer faint, but crisp and clear, as if spoken directly into a microphone. It didn't recite a list this time. It spoke a single name, a single number. Henderson. 742. My fingers flew across the keyboard, isolating the Henderson family's feeds, blowing them up across the main monitor. A peaceful, two-story house in a quiet cul-de-sac. Living room, kitchen, nursery, driveway. The glitch lasted its standard, heart-stopping second, and then they were back. Nothing had changed. The house was exactly as it had been. I held my breath, waiting. A minute passed. The only sound was my own ragged breathing and the steady hum of the machines. It was over. Nothing had happened. A wave of relief, so powerful it almost made me dizzy, washed over me. Then, on the Hendersons' living room camera, the image dissolved into a furious blizzard of static. Not the calm, silent replacement of the room, but a violent, angry corruption. It lasted for 5 seconds, then the image snapped back into focus. Everything was the same. The couch, the coffee table, the family photos on the mantel, except the front door. The deadbolt was still thrown, but the door itself was standing wide open, letting the blackness of the suburban night pour into the house. Frantically, I switched between the other Henderson feeds. The kitchen was still. The nursery was undisturbed, a nightlight casting soft animal shapes on the wall. Nothing. I felt a confusing mix of terror and relief. But the open door, my eyes flicked to another feed on my watch list. The Miller residence, client 931, a house just 2 blocks away from the Hendersons. The camera was in their nursery. The room was identical to how it had been a moment before. The crib, the rocking chair, the soft glow of the nightlight. But there was something new. In the far corner of the room, just beyond the reach of the light, was a shadow. A patch of darkness so absolute it seemed to drink the light around it. It was tall and unnaturally thin, a stark vertical line of nothingness that didn't belong. I stared, my mind refusing to accept what I was seeing. The shadow didn't move. It just was. As I watched, paralyzed, a part of the shadow detached itself from the wall. It unfolded like a piece of paper being crumpled in reverse. It stretched, elongated, and took a single, silent, fluid step forward, out of the corner and into the dim light of the nursery. It was a figure, impossibly tall and gaunt, its limbs too long, its form shifting and indistinct like heat haze off asphalt. And I finally understood. The terrible, cosmic truth of it all crashed down on me. The room wasn't a place you looked into. It was a place you passed through. A hallway. A transit hub connecting every camera on my network. The glitch wasn't a window. It was the doors swinging open and shut. For 1 second, every single night, all 10,000 locations were linked together, becoming one single sprawling building. The voice wasn't calling out targets. It was choosing an exit. Something had been waiting in that room, and it had just stepped out of the Hendersons' front door and into the Miller's nursery, using the invisible pathways of my network. Horror, pure and undiluted, seized me. I was no longer a watchman. I was a doorman, a gatekeeper for an invasion I had unwittingly monitored. My wall of screens, my kingdom, was no longer a grid of separate, safe locations. It was a map of a hunting ground, and the prey was every person sleeping peacefully behind the unblinking eye of my cameras. Before I could even scream, it began. The feed from a home in Ohio blinked to black. Not a glitch, but a permanent, final darkness. A storefront in California showed its reinforced glass doors swinging inward, silently against its magnetic lock. The long, empty corridor of a hospital in Texas suddenly had a figure standing at the far end of it. A tall, distorted silhouette that seemed to absorb the light from the fluorescent panels above. One by one, my little green lights of integrity began turning red, winking out of existence, or showing scenes of quiet, impossible violation. My hands flew to the master console, my fingers fumbling for the emergency network shutdown. But it was too late. The system was no longer mine. A strange, alien code was flooding the logs, rewriting permissions, locking me out. The hum of the servers pitched higher and higher, a keening shriek of overloaded processors. The last thing I saw before the main power breaker for the entire facility blew, plunging me into absolute darkness and silence, was a flicker on the small, dome-shaped security camera mounted on the ceiling in the corner of my own room. For a fraction of a second, the feed to my own monitor was replaced. It showed a dusty room, a single wooden chair. But the camera angle wasn't the one I knew. This time the view was from the inside, looking out at me. The screens went dark, but I can still hear the whisper. It's not in the speakers anymore. It's in the walls. It's in my head. I don't know what crossed over or how many of them there are. All I know is that they are walking among us, wearing the static between seconds. It makes you wonder, what else is hiding in the noise? Join me next time as we explore the message found on the world's last active radio telescope.